I've been working at MSP up until I was at Cognition, actually, and acquiring other MSPs, and started out 1-2 man shop, and eventually sold that in, I think, 2016. But joined the Cognition team in about 2019, and then came on and to the ScalePad family early this year. So at my MSP, one of the biggest problems we continue to have was just being able to get to that data. So there's generally a big thing about getting the data in the system, but not about getting it out. So I'll start with that. Just historically, that's always just been an issue. So we're IT people, so we know, hey, there's a way to get to this data in some way. Is it a CSV dump? Is it a SQL query or whatever? And how can I get to that data to make some meaningful metrics for my business? So what you see a lot is I can get some quick metrics out or something like that. But for anything that was harder, where it was how do we predict and when do we need to hire or things like that, it came down to a DIY type thing or just kind of guessing. Then once you've got the data kind of set up, how do you actually build those KPIs? What reports do you make? What's the math behind it? And how does all that stuff kind of work together? There's a saying in the data science field where it says data science is 80% preparing the data and 20% complaining about preparing the data. It takes so much work to get that in a usable way where you can actually make meaningful business decisions. And then the last piece is the MSP space being very unique. I see outside vendors always trying to get into this space and failing because they don't understand how we operate as MSPs. So over time, what happens is people try to start using these things and they sort of half work, but they don't really apply to us in an ongoing fashion, especially in that monthly cadence like we operate as MSPs. So how do we know this kind of stuff is true? So what do we see out there? So at a high level, I talk to MSPs all the time, on the road, on Zoom, whatever. Everybody's dissatisfied with how the reporting is enabled or how difficult it is. And what you end up having is just ledgers and spreadsheets all over the place. Or you have a full custom team you got to get, and who can get to that scale to afford that. So dashboarding alone, which I'll talk about in a second, is not sufficient enough to really give you those insights. And so there's dashboarding tools out there now that tell you, hey, here's what's in the database right now, but it doesn't really help you with trending or forecasting where you can predict those kind of things. So I always equate this to feeling like you've got a good financial plan because you check your bank account balance once a day. All that really tells you is what you can spend in this moment. It doesn't tell you what your finances are going to look like 6 months from now, and it's kind of laughable to think about it that way. But that's what dashboarding tools do. So they're good for a certain case, but not for long-term business decisions and what I call just kind of steering the ship. So when I talk to MSPs, I see this before and after, and before they're in this state of, and there are emerging MSPs, they're in this state of just kind of eyeballing some service boards. How many tickets do we have open? How much time entry was put in today? Things like that. And you're just kind of waiting for employee or customer complaints to pop up, and you're reacting to those, and you're not able to jump ahead. And then as you move out of emerging and into growth, what you're doing at that point is you're just doing those data dumps like I was talking before. You might be doing some pivot tables and calculations, things like that. You're starting to get into some dashboarding tools and able to afford some of those kind of things to help you out. But you kind of thirst for more things where you can say, hey, when can I do this? Or should I be able to cut costs or increase rates here? How do I make those decisions? And then when you get into the bigger scaling teams, the bigger MSPs that are maybe acquiring multiple MSPs and things like that, they usually have at least a BI person or a BI team that this is all they're doing. They're trying to use tools like Power BI, Tableau, things like that, where they can really start to get into that data. But again, those tools weren't natively written for MSPs. So where we are today with all this, what does that look like for the MSP space? Well, a little scary stat that came out recently from Service Leadership, 31% of MSPs losing money in Q1 of this year. This year, 2023, where ChatGPT is changing the world and Apple Vision Pro is going to make us all like Wall-E robots, we still aren't using those real insights on our data. So how does this kind of thing happen over 2023 or a full quarter, did they see this coming? Did they know this was happening? Could they have pivoted if they'd had better insights? So where they want to be in each stage is being able to automate that data. So at the emergent stage, it's just, I'm working tickets probably full time. I'm still the owner, but I'm still going to be working tickets as well. I just need something quick where you can jump in and tell me, build it for me. I need it for automatic. Next stage you're going to be moving into, you probably have a line of managers that are helping you out now. So then it's, I need to enable them to make these decisions so they're not coming to me because I'm the only guy that knows how to run the SQL query, and be able to give them that data as well. And then as you get larger, enabling those BI teams with those time analyzing analytics where you can jump in and predict things in the future, move large teams from one project to another and things like that. So what they want from their data when I talk to them is similar to, hey, I just want to stop the time leak. So I got to get my people to put time in, can't get them to do it, don't have an effective way to measure it. We look at it every so often, but it's not part of the culture. How do I make decisions about who is contributing to my bottom line? Is that an employee that's helping or hindering? Or is it a customer? Which maybe I need to raise rates for that customer. Maybe I need to cut that customer. Or what type of customers are good for me to go after? Maybe there's a specific vertical that we're really profitable at. And then am I priced right? Once you move out of that stage, you're going to be, okay, we kind of got a good thing going. We've gained some traction here. How do we keep this thing on track? Well, I need to enable my management team with those actionable insights that they need every day so that they can jump in at any point and find out what's going on. Not wait till the end of the month and then do a CSV dump and then let's all have a meeting about it. They need to actively build that into their data culture. That allows them to zero in on that problem. And then you can do what I call financial problem management. So problem management is the traditional IT terminology where you can jump in and say, which kind of things are we working on? Let's lower those things so that we're having less problems, less tickets. Doing that with a financial lens where you can say, hey, we're paying technicians $30,000 over the past 6 months to fix email issues. Well, hey, maybe half of our customers are on POP3 servers. Let's move them to Office 365 and do it as a free project so we can start making money on these customers. Then as you move into your scaling and your enterprise class MSPs, how do we keep consistent at this level? So we've got so many customers and may have had several acquisitions coming on. I want to keep the same amount of service that got us to this stage. How can I actually do that? So data at this point is the only way to make that possible. If you're not handling this data at this point, the business is running you, you're not running your business. So this is where, hey, we've got a roadblock in this one project. Let's move our scheduled resources over to this other project. Let's predict our scheduling capacity, how far out we can go, and bring consistency across the board. What questions do we want to answer as we look into our data? How profitable are my clients? Which can I cut? Which can I let go? Are we over or understaffed? Owner is always going to say, we're overstaffed. Service manager is going to say understaffed. There's that constant headbutting. I've been there where you're sitting there having that argument, and it becomes an emotional thing as opposed to a data-driven discussion. So enabling that, all that kind of stuff are things that you want to see in your data. Cognition 360 allows you to scale and increase this business because our business model is based on a fixed monthly or fixed project fee typically, where we're working up against that fixed monthly amount. So obviously if you've underscoped that, that's going to be a big problem and you're not going to be profitable, which is going to put you in that bucket of that 1/3 of MSPs we were talking about earlier. If you're looking to be acquired or you want to acquire companies, you have to get in this stage, or maybe you're just comfortable running it on your own, but you have to get your data ready to be able to make these decisions. So what Cognition does is it does this for you. So what you can see here is it's capturing month over month what the individual margin is. So I can look in June of 2018 and say we were 34% profitable, and the next month we jumped up to 54%. Why did that happen? I can drill into the data right here. This one's going to basically show me, hey, as an MSP, am I my biggest customer? Are we spending all of our time working on stuff internally? That's what that realization metric right there in the middle is talking about, where it's basically saying what percentage of time and what is the total amount of time that my technicians are putting against customer-related activities. It's not against our own activities in any way, not internal meetings, not training, specifically on a customer ticket. Immediately, you can see value there. What I tell people all the time is, obviously, you want your layer 1, layer 2 engineers to be working towards that goal, but if your service manager is highly realized, they're not managing, they're just still working tickets like they used to. Our ticket's bouncing around. How long before a ticket comes in until we're putting a time entry on that ticket, which is what I always say is what customers care about the most. They don't care how your SLAs are laid out or anything like that. When I tell you I have a problem, how quickly until you're going to work on it. Being able to jump in and see that and compare different techs against each other, different teams, even different customers against each other. Maybe we're giving one customer some more love than we're giving another customer. Why does that happen? And then this is what I was talking about earlier with financial problem management, where you can hone in and say, these are the types of tickets that we're working on. These are the ones costing us the most. And then which customers are those correlated to, so we can start attacking that at a financial level. It's also important that you've got insights and reporting on your entire business. So from the time you're doing that sale until the time you're sending them that invoice. It's called book to bill or quote to cash. We're there with you every step of the way, where we can give you insights across the board for your MSP. Up until this point, Cognition has just analyzed over about 300 million tickets, where we're looking at KPIs and what's kind of best practice, and we can do some indexing and things like that. We're also looking at 140 million different time entries. We're scoring every one of those time entries, both financially, like I was talking about a little bit before, and then in other operational metrics, where you can say, how quickly are my techs putting their time in? Are they putting it in now, and then, or are they working it now and then putting it in 2 weeks later? And then this is probably my favorite stat about Cognition 360. What we see is an increase in profitability for these MSPs and using Cognition 360 by 12%. So one of those biggest issues that I often see is I see workstation issues is eating up a lot of time. I see email issues, and probably the third one that I see the most is backup-related issues. So what we see actually in the data, and I actually haven't shared this with a whole lot of people yet, is that people that are using automated centralized management of their backup are reducing the time spent on those backups by up to 70%.